What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of You for Rurouni Kenshin. This is episode 32, and with me, as always, I have Blue Spade.
Yeah, so we pick up after the last episode in which Shishio meets with his subordinate. I think his name is Hoji. To
Hmm.
pretty much like discuss their next course of action, and like of like how to deal with Kenshin in particular, because they of course know that Kenshin is looking to replace his broken Sakamoto, which they along with like one of the 10 swords named Cho learn that Kenshin was unsuccessful in convincing like one of the sword maker's sons to reforge the sword for him. But they learned that what was it that the man's father made like one last sword and left it housed it like in a temple. So Cho takes it upon himself to go to the knife smith's shop, and then he ends up first he plays around with it, with the knife maker's son, but then ends up like threatening both him and his wife to revealing where the katana is housed in the temple before he ends up abducting the child himself.
Yeah, like the whole time, I was wondering if he was actually going to go through with like killing that kid, but it seems like he still might do it because he said like he's going once he obtains the sword, he might test it out on the kid.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, so the whole time, or well, I think like was it before or after this happened? Like I think Misao, she finds out like about what happened, or I think she comes by after the son gets kidnapped,
yeah,
and finds out about that he had been kidnapped, and then once this gets back to Kenshin, of course, Kenshin decides to spring into action and uh go after this guy, and meet him at this temple where they have a confrontation, and it seems like Kenshin at first, he pretty easily gets the upper hand against him, using Hitsin Miyugi Ryo or whatever.
it, it
I
was it
forget what
was
it's
it was
called.
Cho.
He,
It-
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so he so Cho, I mean, he uses like a variety of different katanas at his disposal. But Kenshin, of course, even without his Sakamoto, is able to gain the upper hand at least temporarily. But in the process, he destroys his scabbard, which he pretty much lands a decent blow on Cho, but he reveals like he was protected by like a whole bunch of katanas, I think, wrapped around his back or something, or I don't know what like how he did it.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Yeah, so because it's revealed like the the blacksmiths, or the son goes to observe what's happening, and he sees that because at first you think it's like armor that's like wrapped around his torso, but it's revealed that it's actually like a sword, that's somehow like wrapped around it, and is I guess this is protecting him, and I guess the son reveals that it's gonna be like, I guess, near impossible, maybe, to like land any blows on him because of that.
Yeah, I mean that's gonna be up to like how Kenshin's gonna retrieve that so-called katana that's housed in the temple.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, that's pretty much the entire episode. I mean, almost it really felt like it just went by pretty fast based on like how much you know how much things played out in terms of like where oh where what the villain of the episode was doing, and then how Kenshin is gonna end up fighting this guy.
Yeah, I mean, Cho, after he introduced himself, I mean, he was a pretty intimidating villain, just based on how he was kind of messing around with the sun, and how you always kind of wondered if he was going to end up going through with like killing the sun, but he almost does a few times, but he's going to save it, I guess, for when he actually gets his hands on that katana. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think he's a pretty good villain from what I've seen of him so far. Um, and then, of course, once you think that Kenshin kind of has the upper hand against him, he's somewhat like, reveals that, he's being protected by that sword, because Kenshin did land a blow on him that should have taken him out, but then of course he gets back up from it. But yeah, I mean, I'm wondering like what the other 10 swords are going to be like, considering this guy is pretty insane. So, and he seems to be a pretty good, match for Kenshin. But yeah, I mean, it was a pretty good episode. It's just pretty much just revealing this guy is like one of the 10 swords, and that Kenshin is going to have to fight. And, you're kind of wondering how Kenshin is going to fight this guy, because I mean he doesn't really have a weapon right now. I mean, he pretty much, I guess, just is gonna have to rely maybe on either like barehanded or try to come up with something else, because he doesn't really have his Sakamoto. So he's pretty much and then this guy, he's got that sword like wrapped around him. So I'm wondering how Kenshin's gonna deal with this.
Yeah. I mean, even if like Kenshin is able to defeat this guy, I mean, there's still like 9 other 10, members of the 10 swords that, Kenshin will have to deal with. But I mean, I could assume that most of the other characters, like Sanosuke and some of the other characters, will end up fighting them in their place.
Yeah, I could see that. But yeah, a pretty good episode. Like I said, I don't really have too much else to say about it. I don't know if you have anything else to say about it.
It was a good episode to bring Kenshin back into the fold after. I think he was mostly, I mean, no, he was only absent in one episode with Sanosuke being the main focus. But yeah, it's now like Kenshin, facing off against one of the 10 swords for the first time. It's gonna, it's definitely picking up steam now.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, guys, with that all being said, until next time, we will see you all later.